the beginning of an unbreakable friendship. Jenna and Ava first crossed paths during freshman year at Lincoln High. Two very different girls, drawn together by fate in the bustling suburbs outside Boston. Jenna, a diligent student from a middle-class Irish-American family, often kept to herself, focused on grades and dreaming of a legal career. Ava, meanwhile, was magnetic and fearless, raised by a single mom who worked double shifts, always ready to stand up for her friends and make anyone laugh. They became close after an unexpected encounter in English class during a group project. When Jenna's anxiety got the best of her during a presentation, Ava seamlessly stepped in, redirecting the attention and cracking a joke that made their classmates erupt in laughter. For Jenna, it was the first time someone had saved her from the spotlight in such a kind, genuine way. From then on, their bond grew organically, the kind of friendship where secrets were traded over late-night texts, and weekends disappeared into shared playlists and inside jokes. Through 4 sweltering Boston summers and icy winters, the girls navigated prom dates, family drama, SAT prep, and heartbreak together. They could read each other's moods with nothing but a glance. When Jenna's father lost his job, it was Ava who slipped extra snacks into her lunch bag without a word. When Ava's mom was hospitalized, Jenna spent nights on the family's worn-out couch, making sure Ava wasn't alone. Together, they survived the chaos of senior year, cheered each other on through college applications, and set their sights on bright futures. Even after Jenna landed a scholarship at a prestigious local university, and Ava juggled community college with part-time gigs, they remained inseparable. Sunday morning coffee, holiday dinners, and spontaneous midnight drives. All the milestones and mundane moments that wove their lives tightly together. By the time both women crossed the stage at their respective graduations, their friendship had weathered every test. They moved into a modest apartment overlooking downtown Boston, intent on supporting each other through the turbulence of adulthood. Whenever one stumbled, the other was always there to lend a hand, a laugh, or a shoulder to cry on. Friends and family often remarked that Jenna and Ava were like sisters, an unbreakable team, ready to take on the world together. Little did Jenna know, those priceless years of trust and companionship would become the very foundation of her deepest pain, and eventually her toughest lesson in betrayal. The first signs of doubt, life seemed to be falling into place for Jenna. She had secured her dream job as a junior associate at one of Boston's top law firms, cherished a loving home with her husband, Ethan, and maintained her tight-knit bond with Ava. From the outside, Jenna's world looked enviable, but beneath the glossy surface, subtle cracks began to appear. Small at first, but impossible to ignore as time went on. It started innocently enough. A couple of anonymous text messages sent to Jenna late one evening. At first, she brushed them off as spam, just the usual digital noise everyone encounters. But then the messages became oddly personal. They referenced private moments Jenna had never shared publicly, like the evening she and Ethan argued about starting a family, or the old nickname her father used to call her as a child. She couldn't understand how anyone else could know such things. Within weeks, more troubling signs emerged. An email circulated at her law firm, alleging that Jenna had leaked confidential information about a high-profile case. The email contained just enough plausible detail to plant seeds of doubt among her colleagues, even though Jenna knew it was a complete fabrication. She found herself under increased scrutiny from her boss and the HR department. Her every move at work questioned in a way that left her anxious and on edge. At home, the atmosphere shifted as well. Ethan grew distant, his trust eroded by rumors and accusations he couldn't quite articulate. Jenna noticed him pulling away, their once effortless conversations suddenly peppered with suspicion. The anonymous messages had found their way to Ethan too, cryptic warnings that Jenna was hiding things, that her loyalty as a wife was questionable. He never confronted her directly, but Jenna could feel the growing barrier between them, and it broke her heart. Feeling isolated, Jenna turned instinctively to Ava, the person who had always been her safe harbor. Ava comforted her, insisting that things would blow over and encouraging Jenna not to let gossip get in her head. Yet, looking back, Jenna realized that Ava's reassurances always stopped just short of offering solutions or suggesting action. And oddly, Ava seemed almost too eager for updates whenever a new incident occurred. As time went by, the pattern became unmistakable. Each personal crisis Jenna confided in Ava would soon be twisted and magnified, reappearing as another damaging rumor or anonymous tip. Her closest friends became more distant, some even questioning her character directly. Jenna started double-checking doors, rereading her texts, and second-guessing every word she said during vulnerable late-night conversations. She felt surrounded, defenseless, and increasingly paranoid, unsure whom to trust, but never daring to believe that her best friend might not be on her side. Those first months marked the beginning of an unraveling Jenna never saw coming. The whispers, digital shadows, and spreading doubts would soon change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The heartbreaking collapse of a marriage. Jenna had never imagined that her marriage to Ethan, once the solid foundation of her adult life, would become a constant battleground of suspicion, silence, and sorrow. In the early days, their relationship had been all laughter, late night, takeout, and soft-spoken dreams whispered under the Boston city lights. Ethan, dependable and optimistic, had stood by her side during the long nights of studying for the bar exam, always believing she would achieve everything she set out to do. He was the first to cheer her promotions, the last to question her choices. But now, the warmth at the core of their shared home had cooled, and Jenna could barely recognize the man sharing her bed. The change crept in slowly, almost imperceptibly. At first, it was just small things. Ethan coming home later than usual, conversations cut short by his distracted gazes at his phone, a distant tone replacing the easy affection that once colored their everyday life. Jenna tried to dismiss it as normal stress. Ethan's job as an architect had become more demanding, and she was often exhausted from the relentless pressure at her law firm. Yet beneath the routine busyness, an unspoken tension was growing, one that made Jenna's stomach knot with anxiety each morning. As the anonymous messages and circulating rumors intensified, their marriage began to unravel in earnest. Jenna noticed Ethan receiving strange texts and private calls, a habit he'd never had before. Once, upon entering the room unexpectedly, she found him quickly locking his phone and turning away. When she asked who he'd been talking to, he brushed her off, muttering about work stuff or just a friend. The explanation sounded false even to him, but Jenna let it go, unwilling to start a fight before dinner. Their apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt filled with secrets. Arguments, which had once been rare and quickly resolved, became regular fixtures in their evenings. Something as mundane as forgetting to pick up dry cleaning could spark heated disputes that spiraled into accusations about trust, priorities, and loyalty. Ethan grew increasingly irritable, accusing Jenna of hiding things, of prioritizing her job over their marriage, and of never telling him the whole story. Jenna,
never wanted to
wounded
tell
by
you
the
this.
injustice of it all,
I really am
tried
sorry.
again and again to explain herself, to assure him
Sometimes you just
of
gotta
her
take that
innocence.
chance.
But her
We've been over
words
this.
never seemed to reach him. Each conversation left them farther apart than before. The worst moments came at night. Jenna would lie awake, listening to Ethan's unsteady breathing beside her,
I do.
replaying every conversation in her head, searching for the trigger that had turned the man she loved into a stranger. She would swipe through old photos, their wedding, backpacking trips through Vermont, lazy days at the Cape,
Go there, it'll save.
searching for reassurance that the love they'd built hadn't all been a lie. Sometimes she'd cry silently, stifling the sound in her pillow, terrified that the next rumor or accusation would be the final blow. What made everything more unbearable was the feeling of being utterly alone. At work, Jenna's colleagues watched her with thinly veiled suspicion, and even her closest friends seemed unsure what to believe.
Hey.
Ethan's family, who had once welcomed her with open arms at every holiday, began to withdraw, their invitations becoming scarce. The idea that Ethan might be confiding in others, their struggles, her supposed flaws, made Jenna feel exposed, violated by gossip and judgment. She developed an almost obsessive vigilance, checking Ethan's phone bills, reading over texts on her own devices, and triple locking her personal emails. None of this made her feel any safer. One Friday evening, Ethan came home late, smelling of whiskey and the rain that was pouring outside. Jenna was at the
What is
kitchen
this?
table, surrounded by the cold remains of a dinner she'd waited hours to share. She mustered her resolve and asked him, once and for all, if he believed her. "Do you actually think I'm capable of lying to you? Of cheating?" she pleaded, voice trembling. Ethan looked at her, eyes glossy with exhaustion and frustration, and shook his head. "I want to believe you, Jenna. God, I do. But there's so much I just can't explain anymore. People are saying things. You know what it looks like, right?" The room filled with the sound of Jenna's heart breaking. For the first time, she wondered if it was already too late, if the damage done by faceless messages and malicious whispers was beyond repair. The betrayals, real or imagined, had forced them into opposite corners of their marriage. As the weeks passed, they stopped talking about anything meaningful. Exercise schedules, grocery
get all of it?
lists,
Yes,
and
thank
bills became the extent of their communication. Jenna retreated even further into herself. Any attempt to express vulnerability only seemed to make Ethan's suspicions worse. She recognized the irony. They had built a life through honesty, and now silence was all they had left. The final blow came on a chilly Sunday afternoon. Jenna returned from a long walk, her new habit for escaping the echoing tension at home, to find Ethan waiting in the living room, suitcase by his side. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock. He didn't shout or blame her. Instead, in a voice so tired it sounded defeated, Ethan said, "I need space, Jenna. I need to figure out what's real and what isn't. I'm sorry, but I can't live like this." Jenna watched, immobilized, as he walked out the door, his footsteps echoing down the stairwell and into the gray Boston street. After Ethan left, the days blurred together. Jenna moved through a haze of loneliness and disbelief. The apartment once filled with love, now a gallery of memories she could barely stand to look at. She threw herself into work, trying to ignore the empty spaces, Ethan's spot at the table, the empty drawer in the dresser, the silence where laughter used to be. Nights were the hardest, the darkness pressing in on her as she wondered where everything had gone wrong. She replayed every sign she'd missed, every caress that no longer happened, and every time Ethan had looked at her with eyes full of questions instead of trust. Anger and grief ran together. She found herself furious with the unseen people who had infiltrated their lives, and with Ethan for not standing by her when she needed him most. But beneath it all was a deeper pain, a restless sadness for the life that had slipped through her fingers. Jenna's family tried to help, but their own confusion and hurt at seeing her so fragile left them walking on eggshells. The friends she'd once relied on whispered their support, but didn't seem to know how to help. Even Ava, always so quick with a joke or a hug, was oddly distant, checking in, but avoiding any conversation that touched on the details of what had happened. The split officially became a divorce by early spring. Jenna signed the papers in her attorney's office, hands shaking as she put her signature beside Ethan's, erasing what had once felt unbreakable. When she walked out onto the sunlit city sidewalk, she realized she had no idea where to go. The map of her life had been rewritten by shadows and rumors. But there were moments, however brief, when Jenna glimpsed a stubborn spark within herself, the same resilience that had carried her through exams and interviews and heartbreaks past. She promised herself she would discover the truth about who had destroyed her marriage, no matter the cost. And slowly, painfully, Jenna began to imagine a future on her own, one shaped not by betrayal or loss, but by the difficult strength of starting over. The collapse of her marriage wasn't just a private tragedy for Jenna. It was a reckoning that would force her to confront harsh truths about others and herself. Whatever lay ahead would be defined not by what she'd lost, but by the fierce determination to regain her dignity and trust, one step at a time. The truth gradually unveiled. After the divorce, Jenna found herself persistently haunted by doubts and unanswered questions. The silence of her apartment was both a refuge and a torment, a fortress separating her from the world, but also a cell filled with echoes of the past. The devastation caused by months of slander and suspicion left her brittle, but beneath her weariness, something stubborn remained. Jenna refused to accept that her life's collapse was the result of mere bad luck or happenstance. There was a pattern to the chaos, a sense that the storms which ruined her marriage and career had always arrived with uncanny timing and personal precision. She needed answers. In the restless nights between work and sleep, Jenna took to pacing her living room with her cell phone in hand, scrolling through old messages and emails. A fog of paranoia lingered, but it sharpened her focus. And though her confidence had been shattered, she found herself driven by a new purpose, unraveling the web of lies that had ensnared her. It started, as so many things did, with something small, an offhand remark in one of the old, anonymous texts. The message referenced an inside joke about Lady Portsmouth, a nickname Jenna's father used only when Jenna was very young. A secret detail known to almost no one outside her innermost circle. Most of all, it was something she remembered sharing only with one person, Ava. Her heart dropped. She told herself it could be a coincidence, or perhaps her memory was faulty. But another text referenced a specific detail about the color of Ethan's birthday cake, something Ava had playfully teased her about during a dinner party months before. Jenna shivered, suddenly aware that the messages traced an intimate map of her life, charted by someone who had been close enough to observe not just her public triumphs and failures, but her most guarded, private moments. Suspicion set her nerves on edge, but Jenna was an attorney, trained by years of study to probe, research, and test hypotheses. She began to comb through every potential clue, the metadata on suspect emails, timestamps, the style and cadence of the anonymous messages. There were small consistencies, The same grammatical shortcuts, certain misspellings unique to Ava, the same emoticon signature she used on social media. The more Jenna compared, the less she could dismiss her suspicions as paranoia. But confronting Ava outright was out of the question.
Perfect.
Since the split with Ethan, Ava had continued to reach out in the guise of concern, offering support and lamenting the unfairness of Jenna's situation. Ava had always been skillful at winning sympathy, both from Jenna and from their friends. If she was behind the betrayal, she would have a prepared story, a carefully constructed alibi. Jenna needed undeniable proof, something so irrefutable that even Ava's charisma and manipulations couldn't talk their way around it. Jenna devised a plan. She would feed Ava false information, a small lie, but one with enough weight to tempt a betrayer to act. During a lunch at a picturesque Boston cafe, where Jenna forced herself to smile through clenched teeth, she shared a carefully fabricated story. She claimed to have been offered a position at a rival law firm, a company notorious for poaching talent and keeping deals secret. She watched Ava closely, measuring each flicker of surprise, each calculated word of encouragement. They parted with a hug, and Jenna went home feeling sick with anticipation. That evening, from a new, secure email account, Jenna sent herself a test email, noting the time, subject, and every possible technical detail. She waited. Nothing happened for 2 days. Then, on the third morning, a rumor surfaced on a legal industry blog, one that made a subtle, unmistakable reference to the unexpected career move of a Boston junior associate. Only someone present at that lunch could have known. Jenna dug into the comments section, tracing IP addresses and usernames. With the help of a tech-savvy former college friend, she connected the anonymous poster to an account registered with Ava's personal email. It was both vindication and heartbreak. Standing by her kitchen window, Jenna felt her knees grow weak. The enormity of Ava's betrayal struck her in waves. Every tearful phone call, every moment of comfort, every time Ava had shaken her head sadly at Jenna's misfortune. Each one now reinterpreted as an act in an elaborate charade. The anger she felt was volcanic, but beneath it, a deeper, quieter anguish took shape. The loss of faith in someone she once called her sister. Jenna's investigation deepened. She recovered deleted messages, pieced together fragments of chat logs, studied the trail of digital breadcrumbs Ava had left behind. Occasionally, doubt crept in. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe grief was blinding her. But with each new piece of evidence, her certainty grew. Ava had engineered it all. The text messages to Ethan, the rumors at Jenna's law firm, the well-timed leaks to social media. She had posed as Jenna's confidant while orchestrating her downfall from the shadows. Her days became a cycle of cold resolve and emotional turmoil. She alternated between rage and disbelief, sleepless nights, and bursts of methodical focus. Her family, wrapped in their own pain, saw only Jenna's vacant stares and growing isolation. Even her therapist, one of the few people she dared to trust, struggled to understand the full scope of the betrayal. Jenna said nothing to her wider social circle. She stayed off Facebook and Instagram, turned down invitations, and hoarded her evidence in a folder labeled simply, Truth. The hardest part was facing Ava in person. Over the next few weeks, Jenna played her role like an actress on a high-stakes stage, listening for inconsistencies in Ava's stories, collecting new data points, and rehearsing in her mind the confrontation she would one day unleash. More than once, Ava nearly seemed to drop her mask, eyes darting, voice tense, a laugh a fraction too forced when Jenna brought up fake news or online drama. In those moments, Jenna caught a glimpse of the desperation just beneath Ava's surface charm. Instead of confrontation, Jenna plotted for clarity. She installed secure logging software, careful to abide by legal boundaries, and began seeding individualized facts in every conversation, cross-referencing what appeared online or circulated in whispers around her office. The pattern was too precise to ignore. The betrayal wasn't opportunistic, it was intentional, methodical, and cruel. Amid her heartbreak, something else grew: determination. Jenna knew that confronting Ava one-on-one would only allow Ava to control the narrative, casting herself as a misunderstood friend, or worse, a victim. What Jenna needed was exposure. Something public, incontrovertible, and unspinnable. She imagined the scene over and over. Friends gathered, colleagues in attendance, evidence revealed with the kind of clarity that left no room for denial. The road to that point was lonely. Jenna spent countless evenings reviewing her files, retracing every digital step, crafting her plan. For the first time since her life had imploded, she felt something close to empowerment. Not because she wanted revenge, but because she understood, deep in her bones, the necessity of reclaiming her truth. As she prepared for what lay ahead, Jenna was transformed. The wounds left by betrayal remained raw, but alongside them grew a hard-shelled resilience. In the quiet before the storm, with the facts finally falling into place, Jenna made herself a promise. Ava would never hurt her or anyone else like this again. The plan to expose the betrayal. Jenna had always prided herself on a sharp mind and methodical thinking, traits that had made her a formidable attorney and, once upon a time, a loyal friend. But now, staring down the enormity of Ava's betrayal, her intellect became both weapon and shield. She knew she wouldn't find healing in mere accusations or rage-filled confrontations. If she wanted closure and to safeguard herself and others from Ava's duplicity, she needed to orchestrate an unambiguous, inescapable exposure.
It's over now.
Only the hard light of truth, presented with irrefutable evidence, could free her from the manipulation that had nearly ruined her life. For weeks, Jenna mapped and refined her plan with the same seriousness she'd once brought to winning cases. She began by documenting every piece of evidence she had meticulously compiled: screenshots of damning texts, timelines cross-referenced to Ava's whereabouts, IP address logs, and matching writing quirks that threaded through anonymous rumors and Ava's casual messages. Still, as a lawyer, Jenna knew how tricky intent and identity could be to prove, especially when the perpetrator was as charming and slippery as Ava. Her first step was to set another carefully monitored trap. Although she had amassed technical proof, Jenna wanted something recent and undeniable, something she could control completely from the start. She reached out to Ava, masking her anxiety with a friendly nonchalance, and suggested they catch up over brunch at their favorite bistro in Cambridge, just as they'd done so many times before. During that meeting, Jenna put her acting skills to their greatest test. Over mimosas and eggs Benedict, she feigned vulnerability, hinting that she was finally getting over her struggles and considering a big career leap. She confided in Ava, loud enough for only her to hear, about a major new project involving a public figure known for litigiousness, emphasizing its strict confidentiality. To an outsider, their conversation looked and sounded utterly normal. Inside, Jenna was silently taking note of every twitch of Ava's jaw, every fleeting glimmer of calculation in her eyes. Unbeknownst to Ava, Jenna had gone a step further than in her previous investigation. She had set up a decoy work email account and registered a new phone number, both bearing subtle markers, mistakes that only Ava, the would-be friend, would recognize from their years of banter and inside jokes. Later that day, Jenna sent herself a fake, confidential memo from this account, copying herself as well as the decoy, ensuring the digital breadcrumbs were clear. Then the waiting began. Jenna oscillated between dread and anticipation as the hours ticked by. She spent sleepless nights refreshing her social media feeds, watching for any new rumors or posts that hinted at the sensitive news she'd fed Ava. 2 days later, her patience was rewarded. A prominent gossip page, frequented by associates in Jenna's professional circles, posted a slickly worded blind item teasing an explosive project that fit her invented scenario to the letter. Details Jenna had only ever said aloud to Ava. Phrases, stylistic jokes, and all littered the post. But Jenna wasn't finished. She quickly traced the source of the leak. A recently created account with a username reminiscent of one Ava used on old group chats, posting from a chain of emails tied to an IP address in Ava's apartment complex. At the same time, Jenna collected secondary evidence by alerting a trusted friend in IT, who traced the posting's metadata and found direct correlations to times Ava's home internet was active. Jenna carefully constructed her case file. She created a report for each point: the anonymous messages, the fabricated legal rumors, the fake job offer leak, and now the new celebrity project, each with screenshots, timestamps, technical trails, and a clear chain of custody. Each document was labeled, annotated, and cross-checked against Ava's known writing patterns. The file, organized as meticulously as any brief she'd written for court, was damning in its clarity. But Jenna knew that technical evidence, however compelling, could be rationalized or spun when presented in private. Ava was quick-witted and practiced in self-defense. Jenna had watched her twist narratives in other friendships before. So Jenna expanded her plan. She would reveal the evidence in a public, undeniable setting where witnesses could see not just the facts, but Ava's reaction in real time. The perfect opportunity arose in an upcoming reunion, the annual get-together of their group of mutual friends, many of whom had unwittingly become casualties of Ava's schemes. The event would be held at a popular rooftop bar overlooking the city, a setting equal parts intimate and exposed. Jenna prepared a digital slideshow and loaded her evidence onto a password-protected drive and a printed packet, lest anything go wrong with the technology. She rehearsed what she would say, balancing a lawyer's precision with the raw honesty of someone who had suffered profoundly. On the night of the gathering, Jenna's heart hammered as she stepped inside. The venue buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, but tension simmered beneath the surface. The familiar feeling that gossip and uncertainty had warped the group's once easy camaraderie. Jenna waited until everyone had arrived, then asked for a quick moment to address the group. People grumbled good-naturedly, but settled in with curiosity. Ava lingered near the back, composed as always, sipping her drink with calculated nonchalance. Jenna started calmly. She recounted, with deliberate care, the sequence of events that had led to her marriage's destruction and her career's near ruin. Her voice grew steady and clear as she connected the dots, pointing out the targeted details only someone intimately close would know. Then, Jenna revealed her trove of evidence, projecting key images onto the screen: the text message threads, the email headers, the timestamps, the signature writing quirks. She showed how every path led unmistakably back to Ava, not through conjecture, but through data and digital fingerprints. As the group took in the evidence, Ava's mask began to falter. Friends glanced from screen to friend, incredulous and saddened. When Jenna finished, there was silence. Ava tried to stammer a denial, but Jenna held firm, laying out the final proof: the decoy memo and the chain of digital postings. This time, the evidence was simply too specific and recent for excuses. Ava's composure cracked under the weight of truth. Some friends recoiled in disbelief. Others became instantly furious. As the reality set in, a wave of empathy and support swept toward Jenna, a collective recognition, at last, of her pain and perseverance. In exposing Ava's betrayal so publicly and incontrovertibly, Jenna reclaimed far more than her own narrative. She restored bonds of trust within the group, ensured her own closure, and set a clear boundary against the manipulation that had shadowed her life for so long.
Yes, this is
The
it.
act was not just about revenge, but about shining a cleansing light on the truth and creating space for genuine healing to begin. Retribution, the public revelation, and Ava's downfall. The evening of Ava's exposure marked more than the culmination of Jenna's meticulous efforts. It was a turning point, not just for Jenna, but for everyone caught in the web of Ava's deceit. The rooftop bar, chosen for its open views and sophisticated atmosphere, was transformed into something far more somber as the significance of Jenna's revelations settled over the crowd. The once warm and easy laughter
what this
among
is, Emma.
friends was replaced by an uneasy quiet. All eyes danced between Jenna, whose composure radiated both pain and vindication, and Ava, whose mask of confidence had finally crumbled. Ava, still standing a little apart,
Isolate and amplify
tried
that
desperately to regain her footing. Her first instinct was to minimize everything, to dismiss Jenna's evidence as misunderstandings or jokes gone awry. It was just gossip. Everyone does it. I never meant any harm, she insisted, her words falling flat against the tangible proof displayed before everyone. Some friends averted their gaze, unable to watch as a woman they had trusted was stripped of every last excuse. In a voice edged with desperation, Ava cycled through denials and half-hearted apologies. She accused Jenna of overreacting, claiming victimhood herself, insisting that she had only ever wanted to help. But with every sentence, she seemed to shrink in stature. The evidence Jenna had arranged was too thorough, too damning, and no amount of spin could obscure the connections. A trail of betrayal running directly through Ava's own actions. The group of friends, many of whom had once looked to Ava as a source of warmth and fun, now found themselves questioning every memory, every private moment they had ever shared with her. Some were openly angry, confronting Ava about past wounds that suddenly made sense in retrospect. Others simply turned away, disgusted by the realization that they had been played for so long. The social fabric Ava had so expertly spun over the years unraveled rapidly. For Jenna, the moment came with a paradoxical sense of relief and grief. She watched as the light of recognition flickered in the eyes of her friends, saw their outrage and disappointment shift from her to the real culprit. It was vindication, not just for herself, but for the integrity of her relationships. For the years she had spent questioning her own sanity under a slow drip of gaslighting and manipulation. Yet the victory was bittersweet. There was no satisfaction in watching a person she had once loved as a sister unravel so completely in front of the people who had once been her community. In the days that followed, Ava's social world collapsed at shocking speed. Invitations stopped coming. The former group chats and weekend brunches became noticeably absent of her presence. Silence replaced the constant notifications that had once punctuated her days. Old friends, who had previously given Ava the benefit of the doubt, began to come forward with their own stories. Small betrayals, inconsistencies, and moments when they, too, had doubted themselves because of something Ava had planted. A pattern emerged, and with it, compassion for Jenna and others wounded by the same duplicity. Professionally, the fallout was equally severe for Ava. In the interconnected world of Boston's legal and social circles, word of the public unmasking quickly spread. Those subtle rumors, which once simmered in the background, used strategically by Ava to manipulate perceptions, now boiled over, refocused entirely on her. Colleagues and clients distanced themselves, disturbed not only by the content of the betrayal, but by the sheer calculation involved. Trust, once broken so publicly, proved impossible to rebuild. As reality settled in, Ava's attempts to control the narrative grew increasingly frantic. She tried reaching out to individuals privately, hoping to sway them, or at least salvage fragments of her former life. Yet the damage was too extensive. Even those who might have given her another chance were wary. The friends that remained were few and far between, and even their loyalty was tinged with quiet caution. Jenna approached this phase with a new kind of strength. She took no joy in Ava's downfall, only a sober awareness of the necessity of boundaries and truth. In the immediate aftermath, she found herself fielding questions from friends and colleagues, many of them seeking understanding or reassurance that they hadn't been complicit. She listened patiently, sometimes with tears, sometimes with unexpected calm, offering what clarity she could. More than anything, she emphasized that while betrayal was devastating, it was not something to be ashamed of. Not for her, nor for anyone else who had fallen victim to it. Ironically, the public exposure of the truth did what years of secrecy could not. It allowed healing to begin. Jenna's other relationships, strained by months of doubt and withdrawal, started to repair themselves. Friends who had grown distant reached out with apologies and offers of support. Her family, who had watched her spiral into isolation, felt relief to see her standing tall, her sense of self finally reasserted. At work, the rumors began to disintegrate, replaced by a grudging admiration for Jenna's integrity in the face of overwhelming trauma. The city itself, the backdrop for so much heartbreak, took on new meaning for Jenna. Walks that had once felt heavy with memory and regret became meditative, places for reflection rather than rumination. She began to revisit favorite haunts without the knot of anxiety in her chest, reclaiming spaces that had been tainted by suspicion and pain. Boston, with all its cobbled streets and chaotic energy, again felt like a place of possibility. For Ava, by contrast, every day seemed to bring a fresh reminder of what she had lost. The security of a trusted friend group, the respect of her peers, the routine confidence with which she had navigated the world, all were stripped away. She found herself isolated, her every interaction shadowed by suspicion. She sought forgiveness, but understood, at last, that some wounds cannot be mended merely with words. Still, Jenna's journey was not one of untroubled recovery. The scars of betrayal ran deep, and there were nights when old doubts resurfaced, when the echo of past conversations gnawed at her resolve. But they diminished, little by little, in the light of her triumph. She had faced down deception, not with malice or vengeance, but with the unwavering pursuit of truth.
Don't let Mark find out.
She understood that healing was not about erasing what had happened, but about accepting it and slowly finding meaning beyond it. In moments of quiet, Jenna reflected on the choices she had made. The dogged investigation, the willingness to confront pain head on, the public risk of telling her story. Retribution, she realized, had not been about destroying Ava, but about reclaiming her own life, dignity, and future. Where once there had been only loss, now there was room to rebuild. By exposing Ava, Jenna had sent a clear message, not just to the woman who had betrayed her, but to herself and everyone in their circle. Truth has power. Community can be restored. And even from the wreckage of betrayal, something stronger and more honest can be rebuilt. Jenna reborn from the ashes. The aftermath of Ava's public exposure left Jenna standing among emotional ruins, her old life burnt down to its foundations. But as the dust slowly settled, she discovered a remarkable truth. The space that betrayal had hollowed out was not merely an empty wound. It was the fertile ground from which something new, something fierce and self-determined might finally emerge. In the initial weeks following the confrontation, Jenna still moved through her days as if in a fog. The city felt different now, as if every corner reminded her of both loss and resilience. Her apartment was quieter than ever. No more late-night whispering to Ethan. No spontaneous visits from Ava. At first, the silence seemed oppressive, amplifying her loneliness and echoing back her worst doubts. But with time, Jenna learned to inhabit this space differently. She filled it with the hum of jazz records, the comforting crackle of old poetry books, and the gentle purr of a rescue cat she named Willow, her new silent companion. Jenna threw herself into routine as a life raft. She poured her energy into her work at the law firm, arriving early and volunteering for challenging cases. Where once she had felt watched and judged, now she found sympathy and a respect that bordered on admiration. Her colleagues, having witnessed the ordeal and her unwavering professionalism, began seeking out her advice. The same determination that had fueled her investigation now powered her career. For Jenna, professional validation was more than ambition. It was proof that no rumor or whisper could define her worth. Still, Jenna recognized that the path to true healing was not paved solely with hard work. Therapy, once an obligation, became a sanctuary. Sessions with Dr. Marks, her therapist, shifted from crisis management to exploring who Jenna wanted to become in this new chapter. They discussed vulnerability, trust, and learning to forgive herself, not for being deceived, but for being human. Jenna began to realize that even the smartest, most vigilant people could fall victim to manipulation. The wound of betrayal would leave its mark, but it didn't have to dictate her identity. Guided by this new understanding, Jenna gradually let old friends back into her life. At first, these reunions were awkward, tinged with apologies and tentative questions. But over coffee and shared laughter, the group began to remember what had bound them together before Ava's shadow fell. Some relationships did not survive. There were people who found the truth too uncomfortable or remained distant. But Jenna accepted that. For the first time, she felt liberated from needing universal approval. Renewed connections with her family were equally powerful. Her mother would visit, bringing home-cooked meals and folding laundry as they talked late into the night. Her father, stoic as ever, greeted her with tight, almost crushing hugs each time he saw her. There was a new honesty in their conversations, a willingness to talk about pain, not sweep it under the rug. Jenna saw the pride and relief in their eyes. They had feared losing her to bitterness, and now saw flickers of hope returning. Outside the support circle, Jenna rediscovered her love of simple pleasures. She would walk for hours along the esplanade, sometimes letting her feet guide her without destination. Each turn of the river, the glint of sunlight on brownstone windows, seemed to whisper of possibility. She returned to her favorite cafes, this time alone, but not lonely, journaling about the complexity of forgiveness and the thrill of rebuilding herself. She even took up painting again, an old passion Ava had once mocked, filling canvases with deep blues and luminous crimson, a private language of catharsis. Months passed, and Jenna noticed something remarkable. Not only had she survived one of the most brutal periods of her life, but she had changed in ways she hadn't thought possible. She no longer attached her self-worth to external validation. Gossip lost its power over her. Rumors flared and faded, but her inner foundation, now built on experience and hard-won insight, remained unshaken. The sting of betrayal was still there, but it was tempered by gratitude for her own resilience. Jenna's transformation was not only internal. She began mentoring younger associates at the firm, offering support especially to those struggling with self-confidence or office politics. She saw in them a reflection of her former vulnerability, the way she had needed someone to believe in her when she was at her lowest. Her guidance came from a place of empathy, never pity. She started organizing workshops on ethical communication and boundary setting, quietly determined that her experience would help others protect themselves against manipulation. In her personal life, Jenna opened herself to the idea of new relationships, not to fill a void, but to celebrate her own rediscovered capacity for trust. She attended social events with old friends and accepted invitations to join book clubs and charity runs. On one such occasion, at a benefit gala for a local animal shelter, she met Daniel, an easygoing school psychologist with a penchant for dad jokes and an appreciation for irony. The spark between them was slow to kindle. Jenna insisted on honesty and open communication, building their new connection with patient, cautious hope. She explained her past with a matter-of-fact tenderness, and Daniel, respectful and gentle, offered no grand promises, only his quiet presence and understanding. Jenna sometimes marveled at the strange symmetry of her journey. Had she not endured Ava's betrayal, she might never have shed the need to appear perfect, or the fear of choosing herself over the comfort of old routines. The ashes of her former life were not a burial ground, but the mulch that fed new growth. Looking back, Jenna did not see herself as entirely healed. Some wounds would always ache with the memory of what had once been. A marriage, a sisterhood, a sense of ease she could never fully reclaim. But she wore these scars with pride. They marked her as a survivor, a seeker of truth, and now as a woman who could give and receive trust on her own terms. As a final act of letting go, Jenna wrote Ava a letter, one she never sent, detailing the hurt, but also the gratitude for what surviving the ordeal had taught her about courage, loyalty, and forgiveness. She sealed the letter and placed it in a drawer, a ritual that felt like closing a long, unfinished chapter. Jenna's rebirth was not the triumphant, cinematic kind, but something more real. A series of day-to-day choices to be authentic, compassionate, and unafraid. The old life had ended, yes, but in its place stood a stronger, more radiant self, alive to possibility, at peace in her own company, and filled with hope for whatever the future might hold.